Welcome everyone. Let's dive right into this explainer. We're breaking down 10 absolutely crucial personal finance lessons that have the power to completely transform your financial life. We are pulling these insights directly from some phenomenal source material that takes years of financial trial and error and distills it all into highly actionable advice. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start building a really solid, stress-free financial future, you are exactly in the right place.
Instead of just rattling off a random list, we've organized this into a 4-phase masterclass. We'll cover your foundation and risks, the actual math of spending and saving, why investing should be boring, and finally navigating the illusion of wealth.
All right, Phase 1, Foundation and Risks. You see, wealth actually doesn't start in your wallet at all. It starts entirely in your head. It's all about how you approach gratification and personal risk.
Delayed gratification really boils down to one unbreakable rule. If you can't buy it twice, you simply shouldn't buy it. Imagine you're eyeing a new $500 gaming console. If buying it twice, meaning suddenly parting with $1,000, makes you sweat or feel even a little financially uncomfortable, then the hard truth is you can't actually afford that $500 purchase right now. It's a fantastic mental filter to just stop impulse buying dead in its tracks.
And look, this mindset isn't just for gadgets. It applies to your massive life choices too. Say you're at a career crossroads. Do you stay in a role you like or take a new job you're unsure about just for an immediate $20,000 pay bump? Short-term thinking screams, take the money. But delayed gratification asks you to look 10, maybe 20 years down the line. If you don't actually want to do that new job for the next 2 decades, that short-term cash grab is going to completely derail your long-term fulfillment.
Wrapping up our foundation phase, we've got to talk about risk. The crucial takeaway here is that what's risky for your neighbor might be totally fine for you, and vice versa. Personal finance is just that. It's highly personal. You have to pass every single piece of financial advice through the filter of your own unique situation. Never blindly copy your peers because their risk tolerance, their safety nets, and their life goals are completely different from yours.
Okay, moving right along to Phase 2, the math of wealth, covering spending and savings. Mindset is great, but eventually, you've got to run the numbers.
If you want to build wealth, you absolutely must ruthlessly track what the source calls the big 3 metrics. First, you need to constantly monitor your expenses. Second, calculate your savings rate, aiming initially for at least 10% of your income. And third, track your overall net worth. Let me tell you, keeping a close eye on that net worth number and watching it grow year over year is literally one of the most powerful things you can do for your own peace of mind.
Now here is the golden rule when it comes to those expenses. Your fixed costs, things like your rent or mortgage, transportation, utilities, and health insurance, should absolutely never exceed 50 to 60% of your total income. If your fixed costs push past that 60% threshold, you are entering highly risky territory. You just won't have enough breathing room for everyday spending, let alone any meaningful savings.
And speaking of saving, if you thought your first 100 grand comes from being some kind of investing genius, think again. Consider this breakdown based on data from 4-Pillar Freedom. If you save $13,000 a year for 6 years with a 7.5% return, you'll hit just over $101,000. But here's the crazy part. 77% of that final number actually comes from your aggressive, disciplined savings, not your investment returns. The heavy lifting early on relies entirely on how much cash you can physically put away.
I know, when you're just starting out and money is super tight, saving feels notoriously difficult. But you have to follow these steps relentlessly. You've got to save aggressively right when you feel like you have the least to spare. Why? Because you're building your initial capital engine. Once that engine is built, every single dollar you scrape together will eventually go to work for you effortlessly, all thanks to the incredible magic of compound interest.
All right, Phase 3, investing should be boring. This phase completely shatters the myth that investing needs to look like some chaotic, high-stress Wall Street movie. Honestly, if your investing is exciting, you're probably doing it wrong.
There's this absolutely brilliant quote from financial author Morgan Housel that perfectly captures this idea. He says successful investing is literally just losing your password. Basically, buy a well-diversified index fund, hold it, and purposely forget your login so you can't go in and tinker with it. That's the ultimate winning strategy. True wealth creation in the stock market happens when you just get out of your own way.
Seriously, chasing those extreme highs is just a fool's errand. The data shows that over a 15-year period, everyday investors who simply buy a standard S&P 500 ETF beat out 92% of highly paid active fund managers. If you just aim for sustainable, average market returns over a long period, that consistency alone will statistically catapult you into the top 5% of all investors.
Boring is highly profitable, folks.
There's also this incredibly common trap where people think they're being super sophisticated by holding 10 or 12 different ETFs. Say you grab the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF and then a mid-cap value ETF. You might think you're brilliantly diversified. Well, the hidden reality is that their assets overlap by 92.1%. You aren't diversifying at all, you're just complicating your portfolio and making it way harder to track. Keep it incredibly simple. 1 to 3 broad index funds is usually all you ever need.
Because honestly, time is your absolute best friend in the market. Data highlighted from the blog of Dollars and Data shows something really fascinating. If you hold stocks for just a 5-year period, there's a real risk of negative returns. But as you stretch that timeline out to 10, 15, and 20 years, the risk of losing money drops drastically. In fact, over any rolling 20-year period in U.S. market history, including dividends, returns have essentially never been negative. So whatever you do, don't let the fear of an overvalued market keep you sitting on the sidelines in cash. The source points out that back in 2012, if you Googled stock market overvalued, you would find endless articles warning that the market was 50% too high. The S&P 500 was sitting at around 1,400 points back then. If you listened to the fear-mongering, you completely missed one of the most explosive decades of growth in stock market history.
Finally, let's head into Phase 4, the illusion of wealth and social media. We're going to tackle the psychological traps and societal illusions that silently destroy wealth when your finance meets your ego.
Let me ask you kind of a random question to kick this off. When was the very last time you bought a brand new couch? I know it sounds super weird for a finance explainer, but it actually exposes a massive leak in how people handle their money.
Look, everyone knows a car loses value the exact second you drive it off the lot, right? But we completely forget about things like furniture, clothes, and jewelry. They are also rapidly depreciating assets. You buy a couch for $2,000, and 3 years later, you are practically begging someone on Facebook Marketplace to take it off your hands for $200. And the real tragedy? When people finance these purchases, if you borrow money at a high interest rate to buy that couch, you are literally paying a bank extra money for the privilege of losing your own money.
Now hold on to that thought, because this specific number, $30,000, leads us right into one of the most toxic financial traps out there today.
Please, whatever you do, do not become the 30K millionaire. This is a slang term for someone who earns a modest $30,000 a year but acts like they're rolling in millions. They'll go buy an old, cheap luxury car just to look successful, or they'll blow their entire paycheck on a VIP table at a club and then have absolutely zero money left for actual savings. They are financing an illusion of wealth while secretly securing actual poverty behind the scenes. There's a fantastic point made in the landmark book, The Millionaire Next Door, which emphasizes that the truly wealthy are rarely the ones showing it off. Real millionaires notoriously live way below their means. True wealth isn't the shiny car or the designer clothes. True wealth is the money you don't see. It's the fully funded investment accounts, the lack of debt, and the deep freedom that comes with real financial security.
The crucial takeaway here is that social media is essentially a weapon of mass distraction. It shoves a 24/7 highlight reel of everyone else's seemingly perfect, wealthy lives right into your face. But you have no idea how much crushing debt is actually funding those luxury vacations or designer bags behind the screen. Comparing your real, day-to-day financial journey to someone else's curated, debt-fueled fiction is just an absolute waste of your energy.
Which brings us to the ultimate question I want to leave you with today. Are you building real, boring wealth, or are you just financing a stressful illusion? Are you diligently tracking your big 3 metrics and aggressively letting compound interest do its magic, or are you sinking your hard-earned cash into depreciating assets just to impress strangers on the internet? The choice of which path to take is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you the clarity you need to start building a truly unshakable financial foundation.